Hi, welcome to The Big Twist, where we talk to other creatives about the big plot twists that have defined their lives. And we're so excited to be interviewing each other.
Again, like we did in episode 1. We started off this way in episode 1. We had some ideas about how we wanted this one to go, and I think it's a little bit of, since we don't have a guest in this episode, we were kind of thinking we'd do a bit of a recap of the season, but also just sort of talk about the creative process, since that's what we talk about on this podcast, around making this podcast.
According to Melissa D. Montz, who we loved, she says that most podcasts do not get past episode 7. And there is a really good reason for that, because this is a lot more work than it looks like.
It's so much work.
So much work. Like, you think, oh, you just point a camera and, get any mic or whatever. And the reality of the situation is getting the camera angles right, getting yourself to not look like a total complete fool.
Maybe I might still look like a total complete fool.
I mean, we might not graduate from that, but there's certain things that go into making a more polished podcast. And I think, at least for me as a writer, I have learned so much about what makes a great performance, believe it or not. I used to be the kind of person that would shy away from being in front of the camera. Like, if you pointed a camera at me, I would literally just do everything in my power to go around that camera. But I wanted to do this, and this is going back to something we talked about in episode 1. I wanted to do this because it's so important for me to be telling the story of creatives that are still in the trenches, still struggling, and to communicate to the audience how they've been able to rise up the ranks, to hear their stories. I just feel like that's enough for me to be okay, gotta get past my fear of being in front of camera, gotta get past my fear of showing you my bad side. I clearly have a lot of hangups around my appearance, hence why I'm not an actor. And I have a lot of hangups around what I sound like, what I look like, all of those insecurities. I think that's something that I think I can, as a writer, appreciate actors all the more for the fact that you get past that, right? For the fact that you are so self-aware about what you look like, and you know how to position your body in a way that is most effective, even breathing in a way that is most effective.
Diaphragm. It's still hard with the mic right in your face. You still have to figure it out. No, there's still a lot of things to that. I mean, not all of us get over those things. I know there are a ton of actors who cannot watch themselves on camera. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of famous actors will never watch themselves. There's a lot, and that's not necessarily because, I don't know if it's necessarily because of insecurities they have about the way they look. I think it's also sort of I think some actors feel like this is a performance, and then, you put so much prep into it, and you do all your characterization, you do all your work, you go through your process, and then you put it out there, and it's for other people to interpret now. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes for some of us, watching ourselves back can be hard, because mm-hmm. it's just that's a whole other thing. That's so different than what you're experiencing in the moment as you're acting. Mm-hmm. I don't know, at least that's true for me. But I mean, we still have hang-ups. I have hang-ups. I thought I had this down because I've been self-taping for God knows how long, all of my auditions. I thought I had my angles, my lighting, everything. I cannot even tell you how long we just spent setting up the camera angles. Our wonderful producer, John, back here, just helping us find everything in the perfect spot, and the lighting, and the, it's a lot. Filming it, audio podcasts are probably a lot easier. If all you do is audio.
We have YouTube to thank for this, right? Because we've been told that a podcast will do better if you have video.
You were told that. I don't know. Only because I don't know. You did the research. You figured it out.
For example, Melissa D. Montz, who we interviewed, and she has 7 podcasts that she's currently producing. All of them have a video component to them. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. At least the ones that she showed us, they all had a video component.
No, I believe you.
So there is something to be said about, if you want to be a storyteller in this day and age, a lot of times you just have to get over that hang up, right? Some of my friends are doing content on TikTok where they're talking directly to the camera, and they were not necessarily trained for that, but that's yet another avenue that creatives are taking to help increase their following and help, get a message across.
Well, it's something we were just talking about with John in the kitchen of like, as a creative, you have to wear so many hats these days. You have to be able to do so many things. I mean, even as an actor, self-tapes are wild. I have to do everything. I'm the director. I'm the editor. I'm the set designer because I have a background now that I put up in my house. I have lights. I have, my tripod, my camera. Like I have to do everything with a self-tape, where before when you walked into a casting director's office, and I'll just say personally as an actor, like I realize that this is where we are, and I'm not, I may sound like I'm complaining, but this is where we are and it's not changing. COVID changed a lot of things. And so I don't think we're going back to in-person auditions the way we ever used to have them. So that's been something that actors have had to adapt to. And it's tough for me because I come from the world of theater and I love a performance. I love performing. And even just walking into a casting director's office and it's just me and the CD in the room, or me and the CD and a reader, that's a performance. My process, I know that process. When I'm outside of the room preparing, I've got my mantras, I've got what I'm saying, I've got my wants, I've got all of the things that I do as an actor for my process. And I've worked myself into the point that I need to be for the moment I walk into that room. For the moment you step over the threshold, everything you prepared needs to go away, ideally, and you just walk in and you do your thing. And that's a performance. And having two people in the room who probably may not, as the reader is just like in the script, they're not often paying attention, or maybe they are, but performing in front of even just two people in a room is a performance. And it's something that you get your adrenaline going for. And I perform well under pressure in general in life and have loved that about auditions. So self-tapes can be really, really tough because it's you in your house by yourself or with your reader, who is often my partner. He's an amazing reader. But sometimes an actor friend will come over and, that's fun too. But I don't know, I'm really going off on a tangent here right now, but we wanted to talk about this because it's like we're talking about our different creative processes and is it processes? Sure. And what this has been like.
How you've approached this.
And how I've approached this.
Yeah.
And what I talked about with Angela in the beginning is this is really tough. I think I said this in our first episode for me because I'm just not used to being me on camera. I'm a character. I've always been given lines and an environment and someone's directing me. And I mean, obviously as an actor, you're bringing you to the role. You can never take that away, but you're still playing a role. And I guess this is still playing a role. There's a persona to being a podcast host, but it's us and it's me being me. And that was something I was really terrified of approaching.
And it's much more vulnerable, right? Like, I really don't know what it's like to be an actor other than like I was in a play in high school and I said one line and even that terrified me, right? But I am very used to being vulnerable with people one-on-one. And I just thought, it's not that great of a leap to being vulnerable with the whole world in front of a camera. It's just like, just pretend that the camera is not there. It's just the two of us having a conversation, or when we have a guest, the three of us having a conversation. But the reality of it is that you do feel a different kind of pressure, right? Like the lights are on you, the cameras are rolling, and, at least for example, the intro, like, let's talk about how that stresses me out, right? Like it stresses me.
I'm sorry to laugh. It's not funny. It's so cute to me, which is just, I don't need to be condescending. It's just, I love it. I love it that the intro stresses you out.
But it stresses me out to be like, I have to say the intro in a very specific way and interview and introduce our guests in a very specific way, how they would like to be introduced, right? And I think that just gives you, at least that gives me a window into how difficult it must be for you as an actor to like, okay, you have to deliver these lines and you have to say them in a very specific way, right? And for you, that's like second nature.
Only because I've done it so long, like I've done it for such a long time. And there's so much improv you have to do. There's so much line changing on the fly when you're on set. So it's just like, a guest comes in and they tell us 5 minutes before we start rolling, here's my name, here's how I want to be introduced, here's what I do here. And like that is a muscle I have worked. So like you tell me that, and I'm going to spit it right back out as best I can.
Yeah. And you memorize it right away, right? Whereas like it's not something I'm used to, right?
Yeah. It's not something you've done.
And I actually want to, because I want to take an opportunity to also dive into our creative process in general. So you said like you've had to improvise a lot on set. Like, can you tell me a little bit of just a story maybe of like something where you had to like on the fly come up with a line? Like, is there anything like juicy like that we could tell the audience?
Oh God, I have a great one, but I can't talk about it because it's something I booked that hasn't come out yet. Like, I think I'm allowed to say by the time we drop, it won't be out by the time we drop this either. I'd really love to tell that one because it's I have booked something that's going to come out this year that was really fun. And I mean, honestly, you never even know if you're going to be, that's a part of the process too. That's crazy. You don't know if you're going to make the final cut until you see it, you know, like you never know like what's going to make it. But, it was a film and it's a very small role, but it's a pivotal plot point that I'm a part of. And it became something so much bigger as we shot it. It was so fun. The director just kept throwing new lines at me and was like, well, say this. Well, first he came up and said, what are your lines? We were kind of like blocking it out. We were going through the choreography. We were, showing like how we were going to do everything. And he was like, read me your lines again. And I said my lines and he was like, and then what do you say? And I said, that's it. And he turned around, he looked at me and he was like, that's it? And I said, well, yeah, that's what I say. And he was like, all right, well, now you're going to say this and you're going to say this and you're going to say this and you're going to say this. And so I guess I can tell the story. I just don't have to tell you what it is.
Yeah, just don't tell the project. Duh. Or the context, yeah.
So yeah, he gave me all these other lines and then I got to improvise at the end because he didn't cut me off. So that's always fun, is just keep going. So every time I did it differently. I had a different button, like a button on a scene is you just put your own last line on it, or a line that's written, you say. And that was really fun. But the lines, he gave me more lines and he gave the other actor in the scene with me, who's the star, other lines. And so I had to, in the moment, you got to process all that. And this is part of the muscles you work as an actor. This is what you just have to do. And you have to get good at it if you want to keep working and you want to keep getting cast. So it was really fun, but I've learned how to, one of the things that is really interesting about this specific story, I think that I'm telling is that it's always a learning experience. I feel like every audition is a learning experience. Every booking is a learning experience because they're all different. You're working with different people. And so it never goes the same way, which is fun and can also be stressful and anxiety inducing. So I have really learned how to advocate for myself and do what I need to do to stick to my process to deliver the performance that needs to be delivered. Mm-hmm. And so in this moment, I was proud of myself because, time is money on set and they were already behind this day. And so we're moving quickly. We're trying to do all this stuff. And I just very quickly said, I'm just going to run through real quick what's happening. But I'd already had it in my brain. I knew I was going to nail it. And so I went through the whole thing that he had just given me. I said, I now say this. He's going to say this. I say this. I say this. Then he's going to say that. Then I'm going to say this. Then he's going to say that. And then it's done. And the director just looked at me and he was like, yeah, wow. That's it. I was like, great. And it's practice. I don't know that I would have been able to do that 10 years ago or like, especially to this director. This is a big director that I was really excited to work with.
Director. I think
keep hitting this. Sorry.
We can at least say he's a well-known director whose name we would recognize.
Yeah. So,
and I did want to ask you something that was interesting to me. Again, a window into being an actor. You said that you use a mantra or you have mantras. Like, I'm so curious about that. Like, are they just kind of like pepping you up like prior to you doing an audition? Like, is this just something like you've got this? Like, is it super specific to the project or the process? Like, I just wonder how you came up with those.
Oh, I appreciate that question. It's kind of all of the above. Mm-hmm. It's usually specific to, I don't even know if it's a mantra. It's a lot of times like actors have different semantics and verbiage for what I'm about to say, but what works best for me, what I was taught in ensemble training, which was intuitive until someone put words to it for me, and I was like, oh, that's what I do, is my biggest thing is to have a want. You must have a want. You must have a need in a scene, and you got to figure out what that is. And even if it's just you're playing one line on a multicam and you get to say one goofy thing, why are you saying it? There is a whole world there. There's a whole reason you're saying it. If you are the person in the grocery store that someone passes and you're just like, where are the eggs? And you point, what is your point of view about that? Are you happy this person stopped and asked you where the eggs are? Oh, they're over there. Or are you like, leave me alone. I've had a long ass day. I have 5 kids and I need to get out of here. The eggs are over there. You know, like, and
I
it's,
love that.
I mean, but I feel like that
Yeah.
sounds so obvious, but I don't know if it is. And it's just point of view. And so it depends on the scene. It depends on what's going on. But a lot of times it's just isolating, or it used to be isolating myself and repeating my wants. Before with an audition process.
Oh,
once
interesting.
you're on set. So that's another
Okay.
thing. Auditioning is a very, very, very different skill than acting. They're not the same thing at all. And I feel like that's something actors need to be taught in school. They might be, I don't know, but I feel like it's a very, very tough, auditioning is tough, and it's a whole different muscle, because once you're on set and you're acting, you're in it, you're in a flow, and you have the job. So the pressure isn't there, you're there. I don't know. It's hard to, I don't really talk about my process a lot. So this is making me like a little nervous.
Now I'm really curious, again, from a non-actor standpoint. It's like, are you not repeating those mantras when you're showing up to do the performance once you've been cast? Are you just doing it ahead of the audition?
It's usually just ahead of the audition.
That's interesting. Just because you have to get yourself into that mindset of like, this is my want. I want to get out of the store so I can go back to my 3-year-old at home that I left on his own because I'm a bad mother.
Because you got to get that, because you got to show all of that in the very. So again, this is another difference between like self-taping and being in the room. When you went in the room, you get 1 take, maybe 2, if you're lucky 3. If they think you're onto something but you haven't hit it yet, you'll get to 3. But you'll often only get 1 take. So you better be able to walk in and immediately drop in and say that with the point of view you have and walk out. And let it go. So it's a lot of working up beforehand. So with self-tapes, you know, you can do it 50 times if you want. It's just you in your home, however much time you've given. But then you get into your head and you're like, how have I done? So I try not to do 50 takes of a self-tape. I try to still just do it in a few takes. It's really helpful for auditions. But then when you get to set, I feel like getting to set is really a lot of like, God, for me, it's just what I have honed over all the years that I've done this and like what works for me in the moment. And I'll tell 2 stories. So when I booked American Horror Story a few years ago, that was really fun. That was in person. And I showed up, and it's also tough because you go in and you walk in the waiting room and there's a bunch of other people there to audition for the same role, and you're all dressed the same because you got your breakdown of like who you are and what you're supposed to look like. So you're dressed similarly. And so you're sitting in this room with all these other people who are auditioning for the same thing you are. So you kind of just have to tune everybody out. You have to like, I'm never the actor that is sitting in a waiting room talking to everyone. And some actors do that, and that might be their process. They might need to be like, I got to chit chat until I walk in, but we also have to be respectful of other people in their process. And mine is very much to just like stick to myself. Don't talk to me. I'm saying in my head what I need to say to be in an emotional state that I need to be in. So that, and I figured out whatever that is, whatever mantra it is, whatever, I've figured that out before. So like American Horror Story, luckily I got to go first. I was the first audition of the day because the room was right next door to the waiting room. And so sometimes you can hear what's happening.
And that can be nerve-wracking.
And that can get into your head as well, because I don't want to hear what other people are doing because I've got my take, you know, and it's like they'll figure out what they want, but I've got my take and I don't want anybody else's take to, you know, have an impact on me. But it was this scene where I was murdering someone. And so I walked in and my very first take was just wild. And I was loud and yelling and over the top. And like, these are some things they tell you not to do in an audition, right? But this is what I felt like worked for what I was doing. And the casting director, who was amazing, was like, great, you're so close. I want to see this and this. And so then I did it a second time and took the notes. And she was like, you are so close. I'm going to give you one more note and let's do it a third time. And I did it a third time and she went, that was it, thanks. And I walked out the door. And so you get feedback too, whereas like self-tapes, you don't. You know, you're just doing this at home and sending it off into the oblivion. And at least it feels like the oblivion. In the room, you at least get this feedback, you know, and I left and I walked out and I was like, there's a bunch of other people who are going to audition, so let's see what happens. And I ended up getting the role. And I think it was really helpful. I like direction. I'm an actor. I want to act. I want to be given direction. So it was very helpful to come in with what I think is going to work and then have someone tell me that's great and add this. That was great and add this. And you don't get that with a self-tape, but that was a told that story because that was a real moment of trying to harness what works for me and tuning out everything else and really tuning into my process before walking into that room, because I was going to do something you're not really supposed to do, which is like kind of lose it in the room. I mean, it's controlled chaos. It's always controlled chaos, I hope, whatever you're doing as an actor. But I was going way over the top, and I knew a lot of people outside could hear me. But you just have to like tell yourself this is what you have to do to get the role, and nothing else matters.
And that's so brave and vulnerable.
It can be hard to do.
Yeah, I was going to say very vulnerable in a very different way than this has been for us, right? Where it's like, you know, if you act out, you're hiding behind a character. Here, we don't have a character to hide behind.
We don't have a script, and we just kind of like go with the flow. If people don't like us,
it's like, oh, you don't like the person that is Angela, you know, not the character. So yeah, that's especially vulnerable. Another thing that I wanted to dive into, which ties to that, and it's so interesting for me because I've never experienced this. You know, when we're talking to all these different guests, I can get so lost in the story that they're telling, and I can get so lost in what is the next question to ask that relates to what they were just talking about, right? And I almost like tune out the world. And then whereas you have experience having to be so self-aware when you're an actor and you're like, well, the camera's here and I have to turn here and the blocking I have to do and all the different things.
You gotta hit your mark. Your mark is very important.
Yeah, you got to be aware of all of your surroundings while at the same time being lost in the moment. So like the multitasking that needs to happen in your brain, right? To be able to say, I'm going to focus and truly become this character, but I'm also going to be completely aware of the crew and the camera and like my angles and all this other stuff. Like
it's a lot.
It's mind-boggling to me because I can only do one thing at a time. I can only hyper focus on the person that is being interviewed, right? And then I sometimes lose myself in that, and I might not be as self-aware to be like, wait, am I asking all the questions here? Like, am I not leaving Anna with some questions to ask? So it's just a conversation that we've had off camera that I think is interesting for someone that's making a podcast. Like what we're trying to do here is have two people interview one person whenever we have a guest. But that is a format that you don't see a lot. Usually you see one person interviewing another person. And I think having two people, for us, it was important because we wanted to feel like a group of friends talking. But at the same time, it complicates it in that like, okay, how are we going to give equal questions or screen time to each of the three people so that it doesn't feel like one person is left out of the conversation, right?
Yeah, well, and part of the beauty of you losing yourself and getting into the flow, because that's what happens. You get into a flow with who we're talking to, and it's really beautiful and it's really wonderful. And part of the beauty of that is that you don't have all of this actor training behind you to make you self-conscious. And it's not that it makes me self-conscious, but it's hard for me to turn it off. I'm very, like you said, I'm very aware of what's happening and like how it's going. I also can lose myself in it and find the flow. But I think that's really lovely. And really what can help make the two of us work is that I'm aware of those things. Mm-hmm. And you don't necessarily need to be, and I love that you're not, because it helps you to then just keep staying focused on our guest and continuing to listen and ask questions based on what they've just said. You're actively listening and you're very engaged with them. And I think that that's really lovely. And you've had some wonderful interviews with some of our guests that just really get into a flow state, which is kind of a great place to be. And honestly, like I'd like to be able to do that more. And I don't want to necessarily say that's just from being an actor, because there are so many things we have to be aware of, but you will also hear actors talk about letting all that go is when you are in a flow state. And being able to not think about all of that is really wonderful. And it can be really rare. Like Jane Fonda gave a great interview. I read this a long time ago, and she told the story in such a beautiful way where she was like, it's so rare when it happens, but those moments where you have an acting experience where you leave your trailer And as you're walking to set, you feel it and you just know it. You're in it, you're there. And you get on set and the director says action and everything else falls away. And this performance comes out of you and you finish and you're done and you go back and you almost maybe don't even remember everything that happened. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I don't know that always happens for an actor. I think that's a tough thing to happen often. It's kind of rare because we are so aware of all the other things, especially in TV and film where it's like, cut, go back to one, we can do this again. You know, you can say like 3 lines and cut it and then edit the whole thing together. Whereas like theater, I've talked about this before, is much more of a flow state. You don't get that. Absolutely. You get out there and you're doing a 90-minute, 2-hour, 3-hour play, whatever you're doing. And from the moment it starts, you're in it and you got nothing else but you and your team out there. And y'all got to make it happen together. Yeah. So I don't know, I feel like I'm rambling, but I think there's something really lovely too about you being able to not think about all of the things that I'm maybe thinking about.
Yeah, and thank you. I appreciate that. And I do think, just going back to what you said about how you have to pay attention to everything, I remember working with an Academy Award-winning actress who was better at continuity than the script supervisor.
Whoa.
Yes. She would literally be like, no, I was holding the glass on this. I was holding the glass like this, not like this.
That's mind-boggling.
And this was
to me.
on top of giving an amazing performance, right?
That's wild.
And it is one of those things where like
she's
she
an Academy
had,
Award-winning actor.
she had done all these indies. She had just like, by this point, she knew to watch for continuity on top of everything else.
Yeah.
And one compliment I would pay you is that I might lose myself in the conversation that this person is having, but you are able to emotionally resonate with them in a way that I feel is deeper than I can. Like, you have that emotional access. You know, one of our lovely guests, April Billingsley, talked about how she teaches a class on emotional access, right? How important it is for actors to be able to like easily tap into whatever emotion that person wants you to feel when they're telling that story, or whatever they're feeling in remembering that story, right?
Yeah.
So that leads me to segue.
How emotional I get in every episode we interview
someone.
It's
interesting that we have a different reaction naturally, right? So, you know, if someone's telling a really not sad necessarily, but like if they went through a hard time type of story, like it will tug at your heartstrings in a way where you're like, I feel that. And I'm more like, oh my God, this is so interesting, fascinating. Like, my brain works more from the perspective of a journalist. Like, I think I've said this before. I used to want to be a journalist. I'm very much putting on that, you know, left brain, like logistical, like part of it. I'm turning that on to be like, oh, that's so interesting. This is the next question I want to ask them based on what they just said. But I'm not necessarily tapping into my emotions the way that you are.
Yeah, you're a little more cerebral about it, I think. And I think that makes it interesting.
Yeah,
I think I cried in every single interview, didn't I? I think the only one I didn't get emotional was Melissa D. Montz. Mm-hmm. I didn't get, and I think I started to at one point, but I think that's the only one where I don't like actually cry. I think everyone got me to, but I'm an emotional person and I'm in my feels. Mm-hmm. And I do come at this from that, but not every actor does. There are some actors who don't have a lot of emotional access, and that can work. That can work really well for certain roles. Like, I had a director tell me one time, there was this role I wanted so bad, a theater role, and I won't say who it is. She would probably love if I named her, but I'm not going to name her. But she and I worked so hard on this, and I thought I just nailed the audition, and we knew each other personally too, and we've become better friends over the years since. But at the time, I knew her well, and she just looked me right in the eye, and she was like, "You're not getting this role. You're way too emotionally accessible."
Wow.
She's like, I can't have someone this emotionally accessible. Like, I think she probably thought I would cry through the whole thing. I was like, I can contain it when I need to. But I knew what she meant. I knew she needed someone who had a little bit more of a wall up and a little more closed off to play what this character had been through.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And she knew what she needed and wanted as a director. And she's like, you're a great actor, but like...
She didn't want to be able to read what you were feeling in your face, and that is like,
as well as I give it up, because I don't hide anything. I think we've all seen this so far. Like, whatever I'm feeling is right here.
I love
and it's
that.
usually all in here too. which is why I'm so restless. I feel like it's so many of these. We've been talking about like what we look like, our creative process of how to make this, like what we went through making this podcast, because it was just so new to us and so different. And I think it's been fascinating. Like there's a couple episodes where I just can't sit still. I'm like watching myself back and I think I'm touching my hair like every 2 seconds. And I'm like, girl, be still. What is wrong with you? And so this has been such a fascinating process and then some of the bigger things where like we shot episode 1 in August of 2024. And I also think there's something to sitting with your art for a while, you know, like as a writer, because we both are writers, like I know that when I write something, I have to leave it for quite a bit and then come back to it, right? A lot of writers do this. And so I kind of don't mind that our first episode was in August of 2024 because do you remember we both hated it when we first watched it? And we were like, oh my God, we're going to have to reshoot this. And then like it's horrible. We look horrible. Blah, blah, blah. Like I was like 10 pounds heavier, like fine, whatever. Like I was also like, oh
posture,
God.
right? That's something else we've talked about.
Posture.
Where like we both have these cushions behind us.
Cushions behind us right now.
So that we are not hunching.
Or at least we're not hunching now that we're talking about it.
I know it might have been hunching.
You don't think about it, but
yeah, but these are the things you have to consider.
But when we rewatched that episode and started editing it, we loved it, and we were like, oh, I forgot half of what I had said.
I agree.
I started watching because I hadn't watched the footage in so long, and I was like, oh, okay.
And I think this is a bigger lesson. It's bigger than just like a takeaway for making a podcast because it can apply to art in general, right? Like when you first make something, whether it's you wrote a poem or you made a video, you know, of yourself or whatever, you might be too focused on all the little things that you see wrong with it, right? For me in particular, it's been really hard to see my bad side versus my good side because I feel like I have a big nose and I feel like for a long time I felt like, oh my God, if only I had a symmetrical nose, like, you know, I love symmetry in art and I'm like, I wish I had a symmetrical face, right? And to be confronted with that on a video, you're just like, oh my, all I can look at is my nose, right? And you have to get past that, right? You have to get past like the wardrobe malfunctions. Like in 2 of the videos, like I have a sweater that like I think it was the first video, my sweater's like hanging off to the side and I'm like, great, that looks ridiculous. In another one, I have like a shirt that's too low cut. I'm like, perfect. You know?
There's my bra.
There's my bra. Yeah. And you just have to look past that and be like, you know, is this an important message? Are we allowing people to tell their important stories that haven't been told before? You know, and can I just overlook what I look like on camera,
it's not
or what I
us.
sound like, you know, or the asymmetry of my face.
You have a beautiful, unique face.
Oh, you're so sweet. But you know what I mean? Oh, thanks, dear.
I know what you mean. I know what
and
you
so
mean.
it can be very hard. And this is something that we've talked about before, especially as women. Like, you are so judged by your appearance in this world of ours, right? It's like we are bombarded with women on social media that look like Kim Kardashian. I have nothing against Kim Kardashian, but it is like a very unrealistic perception of what you're supposed to look like if you are to be in front of a camera, if you are to deliver a message to the world. It's like, okay, you want to be a person of influence? Everything about you better be perfect, in addition to you having a high IQ, in addition to you having a high EQ.
That's a great point.
In addition to you being a leader, right? So it's a different expectation than the world has of men, right? Or at least it feels that way, right? So you and I have had conversations about, oh my gosh, should I wear this shirt or should I not wear this shirt? Does this shirt make me look fat? Does it not make me look fat? You know? Today we joked about the fact that we're both wearing green.
And so is John.
John,
our
will you
producer,
are you able to come over here without messing things up? Anyway, just I want
if you
people,
want to,
I want people to meet him because he's so wonderful. And I just think, I think it's so great to like give props where they're due. John has really helped us like hone in on what this podcast is.
Ta-da!
He's
Look at the
also
green.
wearing green.
Look at this great fun.
It just happened.
Thank you. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, I wanted to illustrate that point just to say that like, these are the things that you have to consider, right? Like when you're going to be in front of a camera. And for me, it's been very illuminating because I've never had to think about these things.
You've been behind the camera. You've been a writer. I feel super self-indulgent talking about it too, but I think this is very real. And I love what you just said. I thought it was such a great way of saying it like that if you want to be a person saying something out in the world, you not only have to be smart and perfect, but beautiful, look a certain way, have a certain beauty standard. I love the way you said that. And that I think there's more pressure on women. I think men do feel it too. But there's always been more pressure on women in society to be. And
at least it's the perception, right? Like it may be that the world is in fact changing, right? It may be that the world is in fact becoming a much more welcoming place, but that's not what's communicated on social media. You know, a lot of times what you see, like who you see being successful also happens to be picture perfect, you know? And then you just, there's a reason why a lot of us writers are like, well, you know, I'm better behind the camera. I'm better like just not being seen. Like, let me just write in my little corner and not ruffle any feathers other than on the page, right?
That's interesting.
So.
And that being said, I also want to put out into the world that I am 100% behind women doing whatever they need to do to make themselves feel good.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
So, and I was talking to you about the Tina Fey book.
Yes. Can you say that
What's
quote?
the book? Has she written several? But I can't remember which book this was. It was her like super famous one that came out a long time ago. But Lauren Michaels told her, she says in this book, he told her like, first off, if there's anything about you that bothers you, get it taken care of. Because you will be seeing your face all the time, everywhere.
Fix it now.
Is it Bossy Pants?
Bossy Pants.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Bossy Pants. Look at you, John, coming in clutch again.
Yeah.
So it's very early on in the book, and she's like, he was just so direct. He was like, if there's anything that bothers you, handle it, because we don't want to talk about it, we don't want to deal with it. You just do it.
Yeah.
And so that is part of the reality of maybe being on camera.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's also that golden rule that people talk about of don't look at the comments, which is so hard to do.
This is why I got off social media. I have been off social media for years. And this was another part of this process that I've had to embrace and accept and deal with, is that if we're going to do a podcast, Angela's very direct with me. We have very direct conversations, and it's great. I love it. I love that we can talk to each other the way we do. She was like, you got to get back on social media. We're doing a podcast. You have to get back on. So I'm going to have some new handles. I'm going to have soon. But it's just, I got off because of all of that. Like I couldn't handle it. There was just so much that I was just like, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I got off during COVID, which I've talked, I think, in other episodes about how much COVID just devastated me in so many ways. I mean, many of us, it did. We've all had different experiences with it. But getting off social media was something I needed to do for my mental health. And now I need to get back on. And I'm
sorry to force you back into it.
But this is the choice I made.
But you can also use it sparingly, right? Totally. I think that there has been a movement, at least in some circles, to some people, there has been like this impetus to stay off social media as much as possible because we've started to realize how harmful it actually is.
And it's in a weird place right now, right?
Totally. And it's very alarmist right now and very polarizing. And, you're either like in an echo chamber or the opposite, right? It's like riling you up and making you angry because you're seeing all these posts that you don't agree with. And then you're also playing the comparison game, right? So like on social media, if you're like, well, this person just went to Cabo, I can't afford a vacation. It's just, there's that goes into it.
I don't miss any of this.
That to me segues into something really interesting that we have talked about, which is one of the random facts that you shared with me earlier today is the fact that people are not having relationships and having as much sex as previous generations, right? So like if we're looking
These are a couple of articles I read, and one was in the Atlantic. I don't know where the other one was, but one I read a while ago that was like younger generations aren't having as much sex. And then I was reading that relationships are on the decline, like actual like getting married and doing all of the things that we used to do. Kids, fertility rates are low. We're having less kids today than we used to.
Absolutely.
And these are interesting trends.
And I'm only bringing it up as it relates to the bigger picture from how to be a very successful and productive creative. When you told me that, I immediately wanted to go, oh, well, then does this mean if people are having less relationships and less sex and, just less socializing in general, does this mean that we are making productive use out of that spare time? Right. So
That's a great question.
that 45 minutes that you would have spent on a date, are you then taking that 45 minutes and using it productively elsewhere in your life? And the answer to me is no, we're like spending it on social media and content, like TikTok. And so I think that there is very much a crisis that a lot of us creatives are currently faced with, which is, there's all of this anxiety inducing social media, and the news plays a part of it, right? And we're also more isolated. So the outlets that we might have had in the past of like, okay, I'm feeling so anxious, but I'm just going to talk to my partner about this and we're going to go on a date night and forget the world. Instead, it's like, well, I'm feeling so anxious, but I'm also very lonely. I don't really have a sense of community. So I'm just like kind of stewing in my apartment and watching Netflix or whatever the case might be.
I don't know if that's what's happening. I don't know if that's the only other option to relationships and marriage.
No, I know. This is me extrapolating.
Well, it also made me think of, when you were talking, it made me think of like this idea too. I feel like this might be a little pushback on my part of that everything needs to be productive. We live in a capitalist society that says we always need to be producing and we always need to be achieving. And so I think it's interesting that it was framed for you in a way of like, if we're not spending time on relationships, what else are we doing that's productive?
That's the Capricorn in me.
And also
that's the goat in me.
And maybe, and I spend a lot of time thinking about this because I'm trying to divorce myself from this idea of like what I produce and what I achieve is my identity and who I am. Like that's something I've thought about for a long time. I think a lot of us are now. A lot of people are thinking about this, and it's like I just find that interesting. I don't even know what I have to say about it other than like I would love to just.
Do we have to spend it productively? Like maybe we do need that leisure time.
Yeah. Well, and I'm also curious about these articles I read. It had a couple of psychologists weighing in on why they think this is happening. And their ideas were very interesting. And I don't know how much we want to delve into that because like I haven't done a ton of research. I haven't read anything other than these 2 articles, about this, but it feels like a trend. And it's interesting what they think the issues are. But I don't feel like I could talk about it because is it even an issue? Like, because my brain goes to, is this a problem? Are less relationships an issue? Are less marriages an issue? Are less children an issue? I mean, in my personal belief system, I don't know that I think it is.
I don't think that is necessarily, but I think more loneliness is an issue.
And they weren't addressing that. That's not what came up.
No, I know. But I'm just saying a lot of because there have been separate studies obviously that have talked about the loneliness epidemic. Obviously that was exacerbated by the pandemic. So there is something to be said about that, right? Of
social media, apparently, yeah.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, my personal belief is that we are social animals, right? Like that an in-person conversation with a friend is going to mean more to me than scrolling on social media or liking their post on social media or texting even the difference between texting and having a face-to-face conversation.
But we come from a time where, we don't have to say how old we are. I think if anyone has watched these episodes, they know we're not Gen Z. But we come from a time where, we didn't grow up with that being the thing from the time we were born.
Right.
So like being on social media and being online. And so I can't even imagine how that has shaped relationships and community.
That actually leads to a really interesting conversation we also had off camera that I wanted to bring in.
What?
So I was reading an article, I think it was the Wall Street Journal, that talked about how nowadays there are some couples that are breaking up over not sharing each other's locations. and how
Right.
it was, you know, it was like this young woman being like, if I don't know where my boyfriend is at any given time, then how is this relationship real? How can I trust him, right?
Oh my God. My need for independence and my need for individuality. I can't have this conversation.
You're like, this is crazy.
This blows
This is whack.
my brain. But I told you, a friend of mine has teenagers now. And she's a middle school and a high school child. And they share each other. They share each other's locations with their significant others, with their girlfriends. And like, what? Why are we location sharing? Why are we tracking each other? Well, that is mind blowing to me.
And the thing you told me, I was just like mind blown, right? Like this idea of like, if, you know, it's like, let's say, I don't know if let's just say hypothetically your friend or anybody else, right? If they have a son and the son's girlfriend is literally hitting her up being like, hey, his location is turned off. Where is he? And then she as the mom is sharing this information.
I don't know if that's ever
to
happened.
make this like
that,
teenager like at peace. I think like this is not good for like codependency issues that might arise. It's like, let go of control. And just to like bring it back to like everything we're talking about, I think, you know, this is a podcast that dives into the like mindset of a creative, right? And I think that to be a successful writer, you have to delve into these philosophical questions, into these existential questions that society is dealing with, right? Like when I read that Wall Street Journal article, my immediate thought was, I want to write a breakup scene in which the two Gen Zers break up over the fact that one of them does not want to share their location. I think that's so interesting.
I would laugh so hard, whether it's a comedy or a drama.
Somebody's going to take it.
So hard at that scene.
I was thinking, you know, so again, trying to give you a window into how our weird little brains work. You know,
like
it's
we see the things that inspire us.
Yeah.
The things that inspire what we want to
absolutely
spend our time on. And yeah.
So a lot of what we're talking about also makes me think about how important community is, especially when you're a creative and are in between jobs and are feeling like, I'm the only unemployed TV writer in this town. Everyone else is working, right? So I just wanted to talk about something that has helped me a lot, which is first, as we talked about with some of the podcast guests, taking classes like UCLA extension classes has been so helpful in making those friends that have then propelled me to stay in the industry and not feel like I wanted to give up because we were all in it together. So, you know, going back to how we know each other, I met our mutual friend Megan at a UCLA extension class.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Without that UCLA extension class, I would not be here with you today. It was just wild. We wouldn't know each other.
Yeah.
So I
know Megan through a theater company that I joined when I first got out here, looking also for a community and
crazy.
So I wouldn't have met you because we met through Megan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that for us, this podcast has been an attempt to build that sense of community, right? To try to, you know, connect like-minded creatives. And this is something I also do in my personal life. Like, I recently had a birthday and I invited 15 of my favorite, you know, women identifying friends to celebrate with me. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe that like y'all have never met each other. You know, it's like, here was this amazing producer, like meeting an amazing writer and whatever, you know, it's just like, I admire all of my friends. And I feel like it's very rare that that they get to meet because we just are in like very different bubbles, right? So I don't know, it's just something to be said about that and why that's important in terms of the podcast we're recording, right? That like, you know, we want people to realize how small of an industry this is and how small of a town it is and how you know, for any person that I meet now, it's like I tend to have like 2 or 3 connections, like whether it's like on LinkedIn or like Instagram. I know you don't have the same experience, but it's, you keep running into the same people over and over and over, you know?
And it also helps us realize how much we rely on one another. You know, like my mom has told me my whole life is relational. That's it. It's all about your relationships. And it took a long time for me to actually really internalize that and realize that, because we are brought up again in such an individualistic, pull yourself up by your bootstraps society. But nobody does anything alone. And it's been, that was a tougher lesson for me to learn than I realized. I shouldn't say tough, just it took a long time to really like realize and really ingrain that and understand that. But I love that. It's beautiful. You know, we do all rely on each other.
And that ties to me, that ties to something we've gone through as an industry recently, which is the fires that, you know, especially the Altadena ones. I personally know a director that was affected. I know of at least 3 TV writers that were affected. And we really saw a sense of community coming out of that I think, at least me personally, it quite surprised me. You know, like
how
all
people came together,
all of the donations around town, like all of these like different organizations supporting artists that came through. You know, I remember like the story of a musician that lost all of his instruments in the fire, and then they help restore his guitar collection. You know, I thought,
amazing. Well,
I thought that was really moving.
That's very moving. It's very moving. And a friend of mine tried to volunteer right away, and she couldn't even, no one needed volunteers. So many people were volunteering and so many people were reaching out and trying to help that she couldn't find an organization that needed a volunteer for like 5 days after she first started looking.
Wow.
And this was like right when everything started happening. And so like that just said so much to me about how much people were coming together and trying to help each other. And I love LA for that, that we all just like banded together and we're like, we're going to try to take care of each other and we're going to try to deal with this.
Yeah.
And also the impact that is going to have on the industry as well. You know, COVID, 2 historic strikes, and these fires have just devastated this town. There's so many people who've lost everything, and how this is now going to be another impact on our industry. You know, this is something we like to talk about, is like, where are we with the industry?
So one of the things that was giving us hope back in 2024 was the hashtag survive till 2025, where people were like, well, we know if only we can get to 2025, things will start to turn around. And then the fires happened. And it was like, oh no, we've run out of like inspirational hashtags at this point. Like, I don't know if there's one for 2025. The news doesn't cover that enough, right? Like how that sense of community has come across.
I agree. Yeah, I don't see that a lot. I hear you on that. I wish that was put out a little bit more. Maybe it is on social media in ways I'm not seeing, but like that has been so uplifting and so inspiring, and just made me have more. Here I go. Here are the waterworks. Oh, I caught it by talking about it. I'm so inspired by LA. I love this city. I love the city so much. And I love the people here. People come here from all over the world to follow their dreams. And you feel that energy here every day. Mm-hmm. And it has never dissipated for me. I've been here over a decade and it's never gone away. And it's so inspiring. And I love that people come here to follow their passions and their dreams. And I love that we come together in ways that are that can be so surprising and so inspiring, because I think sometimes the rest of the country and the rest of the world may have these ideas of what LA is, and you don't know unless you're here. Yeah. And you don't know unless you know the people who live here, because who we all are is people from somewhere else. There's a lot of LA locals, but there's a lot of us that come from all other walks of life and all other places, and we come here and we come together to collaborate and try to build something. And that's what the community coming together after the fires has made me feel.
That's absolutely beautiful.
I'm gonna get really upset. This is the hardest I've cried.
I'm sorry.
Nah, we didn't even see a tear come out, actually. We didn't even make it out.
I can see it from here.
Ah, shoot.
It reminds me of the Werner Herzog quote, and this is what I always used to tell people when they would ask me, like, what do you like about LA? It took me a long time to like it. because I was so like fixated on what was wrong. I was fixated on the traffic.
Oh, the
I was
traffic,
fixated on the fact that like I'm the struggling artist in a very expensive city. But then I started to build my little community, like my little pod of friends. And then I started to realize that Werner Herzog was right when he said something to the effect, and I'm paraphrasing, there are more people per square mile in LA with big dreams than anywhere else on earth. It's a city built on dreams, literally, city of angels, you know?
Yep.
And I think that there is a sense of community, not to keep coming back to this word over and over, but what brings us together is this desire to tell stories, right? As a whole, or, you know, desire to create art that is meaningful and that can impact people outside of our bubble, you know, and that's beautiful, right?
Telling
and
stories.
We don't want to lose that.
That's all. Yeah, that's all we want to do is tell stories, and that's what humans gravitate towards. We love stories.
Yeah, and I think that's the meat of the podcast and why we're doing this. To me, anyway, that's, you know, it's like we want to bring these stories to light.
Yep.
And with
on that note, this
With that
is
note.
wrapping up our first season. And so for all of you who are with us, thank you. Please follow us on all of the social media handles that will come out at some point.
once Anna gets social media.
Once I get back on. And then also, you know, wherever the podcast is, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcasts, and watch us on YouTube. We're very appreciative.
Thank you so much. We'll see you on the next one.